my knowledge about CLIL due to the experience, both in primary and at university levels. And I have to click on continuar. Yes, because the session is being recorded.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot.
Okay, no worries. Perfect. Then this is the table of contents. I have just included 4 points, and I'm just going to approach briefly a theoretical description of what I understand by scaffolding, and in particular scaffolding in CLIL. Then I have included some practical examples, techniques we can use in different processes of the scaffolding strategy. And I would like to share with you experiences both at the primary and university level, scaffolding designs that I have implemented, and they are effective and they were successful. So I wanted to share them with you. And finally, because it is a workshop, I have included a kind of scaffolding toolkit with some important and useful tools that have helped me a lot in the design of these examples that I'm going to share with you. So first of all, I'm going to start with talking about what the definition of scaffolding is. And in this sense, I would like to just remark 3 ideas for scaffolding. One is support. Scaffolding is about providing support. The second idea is about understanding and developing skills. But the most important thing about scaffolding is that the scaffolding involves the possibility to perform in future experiences in real life what we have learned in class. And this is what makes scaffolding really different from other kinds of support in the classroom, that students should transfer this learning, this understanding, these skills into reality, into their real experience. And because people learn differently, scaffolding cannot be the same for everybody. Scaffolding has to be different, maybe more scaffolding for some students than others, or for a longer period, right? Another concept that is important in scaffolding is the idea of what's the difference is between scaffolding, support, and help. And that's very easy to understand, because as I said before, what makes scaffolding different is that it is a process. It involves procedures. It's not a punctual action to come over a difficulty. It's something that has an impact on students and give them an active role during this support. Whereas help is just something we provide students with as teachers or other peer, right? So they are different things. So how does this apply to CLIL? Well, I read in chapter, I think chapter number 12 in the book coordinated by Suchilla Sensei and Perez Murillo Sensei, this chapter by Sasajima Sensei included a collection of definitions by teachers, CLIL teachers, what CLIL is. And one of the definitions was CLIL is like scaffolding. And when I read it, I thought that's it, because actually I cannot think of CLIL without a scaffolding process. When I do the procedures in my lessons, what I actually do is to design a scaffolding procedure. So CLIL is like a scaffolding. I totally agree with the teacher who wrote this definition. And CLIL is constructivist. CLIL is about communication, but communication from the point of view of the student who is processing this information, who is assimilating new concepts and developing new skills. So for these, we need to give the students a challenge, not only remain at the understanding level, but push them towards higher order thinking skills. And that's how we need a scaffolding and scaffolding needs of CLIL, right? And it depends on many factors, but mainly on teachers and students' English proficiency, English or Spanish or whatever the language of CLIL is. And then the cognitive and the linguistic demand of the content. So as I said before, different contexts demand different types of scaffolding. There are many different types of strategies and things, but I like this by Dale and Tanner that describes three steps, like 3 moments, right? And I usually take these moments into account. And this is the way I teach my students in comillas about how to design an effective strategy to provide scaffolding. First, providing the input. The most important thing when we are going to learn is that we understand something. Information is usually provided by written text, but in CLIL it is paramount that we increase the amount of information, and we show it in different ways. The same information through different sensorial channels, right? This is paramount, in particular with young students, but also with university students, and also transformation scaffolds. I read an interview about the interview was conducted by McGregor, I think, to Ikeda Sensei, and one of the questions in this interview was, does CLIL fit with presentation practice production pattern? And the answer was absolutely brilliant, because in this article the answer was, well, in CLIL practice doesn't fit, because in CLIL the transformation of the information students receive in the input is not only transformed by practicing. This is not enough. If you only practice, you don't transform, you don't process this information, you need to do something else. So transformation is paramount. We have to design activities during this phase that really help students manipulate, understand, and transform this information into their own understanding, to really break and change their schemata, right? And finally, the production scaffolds. Well, usually in CLIL connected to written forms, but there are many other ways we can combine written literacies with multimodal meanings. Multimodal meanings coming from our society, in which students are dealing every day with visual and sensorial information, means to portray things. So why don't we take advantage of this, and we help them transform this information in things that are meaningful for them? I will show you some examples later what I refer to with these meaningful production scaffolds. And why do we have to scaffold? So the reason why is because when we are doing CLIL, we are actually doing the most difficult thing we can do. We are learning, and we are doing the learning in a foreign language. I cannot think of a most difficult thing, right? So it's necessary that we take account of the difficulty from the cognitive point of view and the linguistic point of view. So it is paramount that we look at this process from these two sides, right? That's why it is a dual approach. Of course, from the point of view of cognition, but in this case, cognition is connected to cognitive discourse functions that happen in the foreign language. And this is very important, and we have to be aware and give the students scaffolding in order to really be able to process and develop these discourse functions in the foreign language. But not only that, students in CLIL also develop the intercommunicative basic skills, like reading, writing, listening in foreign language classes. I mean, they have to talk, they have to interact, to close the window, to go to the toilet, and to do lots of things and relate with the language assistant, with the teacher, with their peers, in the groups, or whatever. So mediating and the 5 skills that we usually teach in English as a foreign language are also part of CLIL. And of course, the part of the language that is connected to the content we teach. Depending on the type of CLIL we do, we can do CLIL in content areas, or we can do CLIL teaching content in language classes. No matter what we do, but there is always a need to look for the language of the content, this academic language, right? So this is a very complex learning context that involves many different types of languages. And as Coyle and Hude Marsh recommend, it is necessary that we do a language demands analysis. And this triptych is very useful. I'm going to share with you later one of the language demands analysis I do in order to prepare my scaffolding, in order to be aware what the language of the content is, what is the language that my students, what functions of the language are my students going to use during the interaction, during the activities I give them, and then what is the language they are going to learn as a result of participating in in my classes. So if we think in advance and reflect about these complex situation, we are more likely to have interactive classes in which students can really transform and process the information. All right. If not, it's just repetitive learning, memoristic, which is not bad, but in CLIL is not enough. And well, some practical examples of these from the point of view of the reception scaffolding, we can divide it into perspective. One is the perspective of the teacher. So reception scaffolds from the point of view of the instruction involve the way we communicate the information, because we are one of the main sources. Sometimes we can just provide the students with instructions, give them an example, or just explain something even, although I always recommend my students to avoid explanations as we do in the mother tongue, because if we explain things in the foreign language, students are not very likely to understand it at the beginning of the class, right? So the way we talk, the way we move. I was attending a very interesting seminar about semiotic by Dr. Lin, and that was amazing, because I thought of these movements we can do when we explain, for instance, a cycle diagram, a hierarchical tree, whatever we do, we can communicate with our body. That's important, the stress of the voice, how we smile. It is demonstrated that smiling creates a more relaxing atmosphere for learning, and students learn better. So let's pay attention to the way we say things and we portray this information and conduct the class. And also, let's give students exposure to the language. I usually start my classes by playing with the students with the language that we need to understand from the input. So before I give them input about the content of the lesson, I play with vocabulary, with glossaries, with games about this language to be able to then obtain information from this input. And then we can do this from videos, reading, songs. This is something I don't need to tell you. And from the point of view of the learner, as I was saying, the two perspectives, from the point of view of the learner, it is very important that we take account of peers, because students learn better when they explain among themselves. This is far more effective than when we say things. And use them in order to take advantages of those students who are good at language, and then they can start faster at the beginning of the lesson. Or guided discovery. I'm going to show you an example on how I conduct guided discovery from the beginning, learning about a concept that is very abstract, the sound, to year two students. I conducted a guided discovery transformation scaffolding activity, which was very effective. I will show you later. So let's put into practice any kind of these techniques that help students really awake interest, that really can anchor what they are going to receive as an input. It's important that finds an attachment, finds some place in their ideas, in their hypotheses, that they can start building in this idea, in this hypothesis. So it's important not only with students at primary, but I have realized also at university that we use with them these thinking routines or this KWL chart. I do it a lot with my students, and they appreciate it in the feedback they give me right at the end. So I think all this is important. And mind, as I say in the note, this is not very demanding cognitively, and that's important to really start from a very relaxed atmosphere, providing resources for learning from the point of view of the language, from the point of view of cognition, getting ready like a sport people. And these are examples for this, like studying about romance in Spain, doing a brainstorm with the students, or at university with my students, getting to know what they know in advance about CLIL. Once we're going to start learning about CLIL, where, when, who, how, what do you know? And then we are ready to start doing things about this lesson. So as I told you before, this is a chart that I like a lot, and it is very, very useful. You can use it from the beginning to the end of the lesson or of the unit or the module, whatever. And it is a very good document to keep record of everything we have conducted during the session. Also, textbooks include this type of reception scaffolds because they are necessary to get started. So this is a question, right? Questioning, the technique for questioning is also very interesting, right? As a reception scaffold. And let's go with the examples for transformation scaffolding. So here, as I said before, the important thing is that we provide the students with the opportunity to develop critical thinking skills. Because if we stay at recalling and understanding, and students cannot apply this knowledge, cannot analyze or evaluate or create something with this information, it's not very likely that they are going to really know something new. They will remember by heard something, but in the foreign language, this is not very effective. Perhaps in traditional education system like the Spanish that was very academic, students were able to memorize lots of things. And it seems that it was a good type of learning, but in the end, if you rely only on memory skills, the learning is very poor. And in CLIL, because it is in a foreign language, this doesn't work. So we need to definitely include very sophisticated activities during the transformation moment of the lesson, in which students can really be active learners, can really manipulate, repackage the information. They should be able to negotiate meaning during this phase. So put the students in groups or pairs for these type of activities, give them space to elicit what they don't understand, because you realize what you know or you don't know when you try to say something about it, right? So that's very important, speaking, interaction. And these activities have to be designed from this point of view. I'm trying to pass this slide, but it doesn't want. Okay, I'm going to stop for a while because it seems now. And this, do you remember the what I was saying about multimodal meanings as you know, something to do once we read a document? I'm thinking now at university students, we give them lots of papers, articles that are hard in English. It is academic English at a very high level. It is even difficult for me sometimes to understand. So why don't we ask them to read these documents and to truly demonstrate understanding, transform this information into something that is meaningful for them? For instance, a song of their favorite singer, a version with the letter of the music, and then changing the letter of the song. Or create a Kahoot or a Mentimeter to test their classmates when reading a document, looking for interesting questions, or reading something and then organizing the information, understanding the relationship of the ideas in this document, and then creating a Draw My Life, these animated drawings that explain things. So these are tasks that they appreciate a lot because they are familiar for them. They are used to understand information through these means, right, of these sources of sensorial input. So if they transform information in this way, that's very meaningful for them and very effective. Also with the primary students, we can have expert groups, right? And then have them work in small groups, discussing, interacting, speaking, processing the information, then turn to the main group, then go back to the small group. So this increases a lot the interaction, which is paramount in this type of learning like CLIL. And then once they have make sense of this information, and this information is meaningful for them, because when we talk about constructivism and meaningful learning, I think, well, sometimes what does it mean? It means that students are able to explain to their classmates what they've read, it's a simple thing. It's nothing about theories. It's just to be able to not repeat the same thing you have read, but to explain it, which is something very different. And as you have realized in these transformation examples, I have always included some kind of visual organizer, because understanding the ideas of the information that we are trying to learn from this particular content or concepts that we are using as the content of the CLIL lesson is paramount. And different types of genders, text types involve different types of visual organizers. This is a very important aspect that we have to train future CLIL teachers with this type of resources. And finally, the production scaffolds that in CLIL, it is a good idea, and I think I explained in detail in my previous talk about authentic tasks, that we plan as part of our CLIL lesson, and we plan for an authentic task, a task that represents something real, that is going to be a final product connected to a gender, and a gender that is going to be useful, even public, even something you share with the world, as I showed you with the living thing test by a student contrasting and checking if something is a living thing or not, right? So, or creating a business, as I explained in that session, right? So if we are going to teach about geography, so why not use persuasion and then have the students create a brochure about wonderful cities in Asia, wonderful cities in Africa, wonderful cities in Europe. I mean, so this is a fantastic idea to connect the language of CLIL with genders and their formal aspects and their functions and their lexis, grammar, etc. And by conducting this analysis, we give them exposure to the academic language that we were commenting before, and the language that is, this combination of basic interpersonal communicative skills and academic language is very important. This mixture is really, really necessary in CLIL. So by including this type of authentic tasks, we can achieve this goal. So when we do this, it is paramount that we scaffold these genders. We have to give them models of the test. If it is a brochure, brochures. If it is a recipe, recipes, or authentic material. To give the students gender awareness, to have them realize the differences. What are the elements of an article? Is an article the same as is a summary? No. Is a summary the same as a set of instructions? No. So different text types have different formats, different formal aspects, and linguistic differences as well. So let's work these explicitly. So in CLIL, some people think that CLIL is about content, but no, CLIL is about content and about language. Language shouldn't have an invisible role in CLIL. In my CLIL classes, language is paramount. Language is explicitly learned, and students know they are learning this language for this particular type of text. This is also very important. And of course, formative assessment. I am here is Professor De Boer, who is an expert in assessment and evaluation in CLIL. And of course, this is paramount in order to really have students develop proper tasks. If these kinds of authentic tasks, providing them with information from the beginning about the assessment process, about the performance, the levels of performance that we expect them to really perform at the end, and sharing with them the learning goals and these assessment tools is paramount. And of course, scaffolding the final process by providing that if it is written, then giving them writing frames, but there are, as I said, many other patterns of meanings that we can, start introducing in these CLIL classes, not only written literacy, but also more connected with other senses and other ways of portraying information. And here is an example of a textbook in which there is a final product. And because I am usually very fond of planning my own tasks, but because I have to work collaboratively with other teachers, and a majority of them in my life career, they have usually, not always, but usually prefer working with a textbook. I have no problem. The idea is, okay, this is a resource. I can then work on my own project. There is no limitation in this sense. And here, as you can see, we got a final product that is a formal letter. Then there is a model of a formal letter. There are steps to follow for the formal letter. There are language inputs, right? And there is, like remember prepositions. So focus on the aspects of the gender and the content, the language demanded by the content of the letter. So visual support. So we have to plan for all types of scaffolding concerning these final products. That's the idea of this part of the presentation. Here are some examples for primary to do writing frames for the final product. For instance, if you have been working about plants and animals, then have students really complete something, right, that makes sense, and they can then explain and they can then realize if they understand or not. Or this is very useful, the substitution tables. They can give students a very strong sense of confidence with the language, which is very important in CLIL 2. So the language should not be an inhibiting factor for creating written words or oral. So give them this kind of a scaffold to provide a stressless atmosphere concerning the language usage. And if you decide to have a final product based on oral skills rather than written skills, it is also important to scaffold it. For instance, if you conduct a debate, I usually take like panels, right? And I show the students, I train them with expressions for agreeing, disagreeing, interruption, this type of communication strategies and mediation strategies that we have to train students with before they are pushed to debate. Okay, so not only written, but also oral scaffolding is necessary. And now, as I told you, I'm going to share with you my personal experience. The first one is at a school when I was a primary teacher, and that was the lesson plan that I included in my doctoral thesis that you can find there as the model ideal lesson plan that includes all the key principles described in the theoretical framework of the thesis, right? So the title of the lesson plan is Sound Engineers, and it involved the learning of a very abstract concept, the sound, at a very young stage of primary in year 2. So I thought, how can I have the students understand about the sound so young in English? That was really challenging for me. And then I thought about using a software, using the interactive board I had in the classroom, and including an interview as a text type to include this language learning, active language learning in my classes. So this was the Audacity, the software I used. You can see on the screen, students were able to manipulate their own voices. Personalization is paramount in CLIL at any age. So if you personalize what you are learning, reading, doing, you're more likely to remember later. And transfer, remember, is one of the key points of the scaffolding. So students were first manipulating their voices and then trying to observe what happens when we change the pitch of the voice to higher or lower pitch of the voice. So as I told you before, this is the language demands analysis I did for this lesson. In this lesson, first I had to be, ready to have my students able to understand about the sound, pitch, high, low, and these kinds of qualities of the sound. But also because I was going to use a tool as a means of learning, I included some words that were necessary, and I wanted them to learn for future performances with this technology. So record, save, play, they were going to do a final podcast using this software. So all this vocabulary is necessary that they practice in advance and they learn in order to be able to interact in English with the computer, with the software, and understand, okay? And then as part of the analysis of the gender, in this case was an interview, I wanted them to be aware of the intonation in an interview of greetings, how you say hello, nice to meet you, thank you, you are welcome, because they were very young and this was new for them. That was a formal register of the language and they enjoyed it a lot. As you will see later in the audio, they did it a little bit exaggerated, which is nice, you will see. And then connectors, linkers, in this case, such as because they give examples, right? And however, because they are contrasting ideas when they compare the wave of the sound. And then in the language for learning, what I do is to think, well, during my guided practice, my students are going to compare. My students need to use comparative sentences, but they are year two, they don't know. So I have to scaffold these function comparisons, and I have to give them the structure and the help, the support there on the wall. You will see in a minute in the pictures I have taken from a video I recorded of this session. So definitely, I think of the language they need to interact with me or with a classmate or with a computer, or that is going to give them, you know, kind of flow during the lesson, that they feel comfortable and they can, you know, understand and produce, if possible, in English. If not, the mother tongue is perfectly welcome, in particular at these low levels. L1 in CLIL is not a problem. And according to my experience, they naturally increase the amount of L2 they use in the classroom with no concern. It's something we don't should to put a lot of attention, and it's something that they do naturally at their own pace and their own rhythm. And finally, the language through is a kind of analysis that I don't find very useful indeed, because it is what my students will be able to learn, but it's a good way to keep track of things they have already been exposed to and probably they have learned, right? Not necessarily, but maybe they have learned about this. And here are the reception, transformation, and production scaffolding for this lesson. As I told you before, I first of all have the students play with vocabulary. So I create, this is one of the tools I'm going to share with you in the scaffolding toolkit. Study Stack is an educational tool to create glossaries, and automatically once you copy and paste the list of vocabulary and you get opposites, synonyms, definitions, whatever you want, even pictures for young students. You can create flashcards, games, quizzes, questionnaires, everything automatically, both to be played online on interactive whiteboards or to be printed, bingos, everything. It's amazing. It's a very useful tool. So the first thing I do is to create this with the glossary from my language demands analysis, and I play with them. I give exposure to this language. And this is a very good way to start a lesson when doing games. And I share with them the learning goals. I usually do. I sometimes even display these on the wall of the class. So and I do maybe a timeline with each learning goal placed at a particular moment I expect them to arrive. Sometimes we adjust. We are aware of our learning process. Metacognitive learning is also very important, and part of this scaffolding, reception scaffolding, is about awakening the awareness of what I am going to learn, how I am going to learn, and in this, formative assessment has a lot to do. And also, as I said, sharing the assessment tools in advance, the rubric, the assessment checklist, maybe it is for self-assessment, for peer assessment, depending. If I am going to give a test, I show them the test in advance. I have no problem with this. And they are familiar, they know what they are expected to do, and they work towards this goals, towards these final products, towards this exceptional level of performance. I'm letting them know. And in particular with young children, that's very fun because they are very competitive. So they really want to get there. So it's very motivating. And then transformation, as I said before, always including a visual organizer that helps you transform and understand the ideas you're dealing with, apart from many other activities. In this case, the activity was a guided discovery. Using the interactive board, I had the student sing a song in English. The Parrot Song was the song he decided to sing. And he recorded the song. And then another student played with the software, putting the pitch of the voice higher and lower. And that was really fun. And the first thing was laughing, but the second thing was observing the waves. And the waves transform. And the waves have wider or narrower aspect depending on the pitch of the voice. So that's the way they can realize what a wave of the sound is using their own voices and observing something that is abstract. I mean, is this is the way we have to think in CLIL, to find these tricky scaffolding strategies that really make things easy, because this is cognitively difficult. But if you scaffold this way, it's not that difficult, it's enjoyable even, because the experience was really fun, really seamless, right? So at the end of this experience, during the first part, they were focused on this academic vocabulary, the wave, the high pitch, the low pitch, understanding the concepts, but understanding the concepts from their own experience, not from what I explain, not from what the textbook has written, not from a written form of information, but as I said before, from a visual and audio-visual form of information, which is fantastic. And also, because they were comparing the waves, and they had to tell me when it was wider or narrower, I had to scaffold these basic interpersonal communication skills, like when the wave is narrower, the pitch is, and they had to point up or down, right? So also movement, physical body answers at this stage are paramount. TPR, that's, I always say when I give these training courses for CLIL teachers, is CLIL is nothing new. CLIL is an eclectic approach, including lots of things we already know. The only thing we have to do is to put everything in the right place to really help students learn autonomously, independently, and be able to reproduce these for real purposes. That's the point. And finally, students learned, well, this was the average. Students were able to memorize an interview about the sound. But of course, there are advanced students, right, who could create their own interview, and lower students who had to be supported and read the interview. As you will see, these students have memorized. So at some moments, they have problems with memory skills, and they support each other. It's interesting, I think. I'm going to play it. Let's see if it sounds for you. I hope so. I have embedded it on the PowerPoint.
Hello, how are you? My name is Fernando. Good morning, I am Kenta. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. I am a journalist, and I am writing an article about the sound. Oh, I am investigating about the sound at the moment. That's perfect. How can you tell me about the sound? Sound is made when an object vibrates. Look at this. Say something, please. And now, what happened with my voice? Look, this is your voice. That's fantastic. We can even change the pitch of the voice with this program. And how it it is an incredible program. I think your experiment is very interesting. Thank you very much. You are welcome. Thank you for the interview. Oh, it was a pleasure. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
What do you think? As you can see, the purpose of this interview was not the content itself, was the language, and was in particular these expressions, the greetings that are part of a formal interview. So in this way, I covered content learning, language practice, and everything in this CLIL lesson. And that was the part of the primary education example. And now I'm going to share with you some EMI courses that we support with some CLIL strategies, right? I don't want to say that they are CLIL because they are not actually CLIL, they are EMI courses, right? But our team, this is Alfonso, Lindsay, and I in this picture, we have a background that gave us the idea to introduce some CLIL strategies in our EMI courses at the degrees in education that we are teaching in the specialization of English to be English teachers. They have some particular EMI courses, and I'm going to show you some examples on how we scaffold with CLIL techniques these EMI classes, these EMI courses. And the first one is using team teaching as an opportunity for scaffolding. In my university, we have an innovation project about co-teaching, and team teaching in particular is what I do with my colleagues, because there are many different ways of co-teaching. Team teaching consists of being together in the same class at the same time and sharing a same status. Well, sometimes it may vary. I'm going to show you later. And now we have recently been approved to conduct a research project on co-teaching, and we are collaborating with a university in the US and some other researchers on co-teaching. So this is the example. Why we decided to do co-teaching? Because we wanted to be a role model for our students. We say them, well, collaborative competence is very important for teachers. Let's show them how they can collaborate. And team teaching is a very strong way of collaboration. It involves lots of different skills and it's not easy. So that was a big challenge for us. Then, as you can see, is one of the competences included in any kinds of list of competence. I have brought here one by Pérez Cañado, who is a fantastic researcher on CLIL, in particular on CLIL education and CLIL teachers training. And well, she has developed a framework of key competences for the CLIL teacher, and one of them is the collaborative competence. And as well, as you might know, the European framework for CLIL teacher education includes this collaborative competence as one of the most important competences on the teachers, from the side of the CLIL teachers. And then also, because it has advantages, both from the point of view of the students, because when there are two teachers, two professors in the same classroom, there is a natural way of scaffolding, and the individualization and personalization of the learning process can be increased. And from the point of view of the teacher, because gives you the opportunity to put into practice at the same time different types of scaffolding. So you increase the variety of scaffolding techniques naturally, right? Not doing anything specially in particular. So we developed the experience in the context of this course in particular was the CLIL course, the course that students are supposed to learn about CLIL, and we thought that was really good that is a team taught CLIL course, right? And it is part, as I said, of the specialization, right, of the students. And there we have different roles. We sometimes are at the same status, sometimes one takes the role of the main teacher and the other one supports the students. Sometimes we have group work and then we both support the students. Sometimes, you know, in terms of grading, we share the grading, the feedback, all the tasks. And we have developed a very sophisticated system of coordination online using Google Docs, where we have our timetables, roles, activities, and everything. This is one of our classes. Alfonso is now doing IWL chart, starting the lesson, and I am introducing. So we are sharing now a similar status. And as I said, we have students work in groups. That's the main objective we've got, that students are not just listening to us, but they are working, doing things, developing hands-on learning, mainly at the reception and transformation, you know, stages of the classes, and doing this processing of the information, right? Connecting what they read and portraying this information in different ways, transforming it. And because we have suffered this COVID pandemic, we had to stop doing this fantastic group work with, you know, in class and so on. And now we have online classes or hybrid classes, and this is a mess. But we found the way to keep this way of collaborative learning and group tasks. And we decided to do it online using Google Docs. And we said, I'm going to share with you the experience of how we work the first module of the course. The first module consists of a jigsaw reading divided in 4 tasks and group experts. And then what we do is to explain to students what they are going to do. And then we give them the readings, the input, They are articles. We don't low down the level of difficulty. We don't know. They study hard. They do the readings they are supposed to do, but we complement this with other kinds of learning. So we give them videos about how to do a proper mind map. In this case, what Tony Buzan, very popular in the USA for mind maps. And we give them the assessment criteria and sometimes what we expect them to create from this information. So in this case, they were supposed to do a proper mind map and explain not only the reading, but also what is a mind map and how to create a mind map. And this is what they did online. And I have to tell you that they were critical and they explained, well, this is not a very good mind map because it hasn't got the drawings at the end of the branches. But that was a limitation of the tool they were using. As you can see, I can provide them feedback as they are working together. I can give them feedback, right? And in this case, I don't even break rooms. If they want, I do break rooms. If not, they can work on these shared documents or they work aside and then they put the final product on the document. The second task consisted on, again, a source of information that is a written text, an article, but this time they were asked to create something creative. And this is important. Sometimes CLIL tasks should be open to boost creativity. It is amazing what they, uh, in this case, year after year, students surprise us because last year they created a song and this year they created this Draw My Life. If you click on it, you have the link and you can visit it. We haven't got time now, but you can see, and this is an explanation of the benefits of CLIL, right? They have read about the benefits of CLIL and they have created a Draw My Life explaining these benefits of CLIL. That was simply amazing and very, very complete. Or creating a poster with an infographic, right? And then explaining, right? So using the sources, Perez Cañado and other documents that they are supposed to know, they read in groups, they share different roles during this reading, they create this final product and then well, I'm going to explain this one too. Task 4 was about creating a glossary and a diagram, the type of diagram they preferred. The glossary to give their classmates, they were going to be the first ones later in the oral production phase to give the students exposure to the academic language of these readings, of these articles they have read, and about CLIL and about different types and concepts and ideas around CLIL. As you can see, they used Study Stack, the tool that I told you later. And this is the diagram they created on their own, in which they explain CLIL in the middle, then content-based language teaching, and then immersion, soft CLIL, hard CLIL, more language, more content. So that's the way they understood and the way they portrayed it. And the important thing, as I was saying in the first part of the presentation, is that they have time to talk. They have time to really explain, to make sense of it when they say aloud and they prepare for this. And this is something that they really enjoy. When you work and you know that you have a final goal in which you're going to share what you are doing, you feel more motivated. And another advantage of doing team teaching is that you can provide feedback. From here is my feedback, Magdalena, and here is Alfonso giving the feedback. Students appreciate it a lot. They give us lots of positive feedback about this type of scaffolding. And we also ask students for feedback in these exit slips every year. And as a result, we ask them what they liked about our team taught CLIL course and what they didn't like. And what they most liked was the practical interactive lessons, the group work, the co-teaching. That's fine, that they realized that was something enjoyable, something that is positive. And they didn't like very much the PowerPoint presentations because they are not very informative. The content, the information is supposed to come from their work. So this is something very challenging for us because we have to review very in detail since it will be the source of information to study and review of the content. So this is something they didn't like a lot. And in the primary degree, they liked more even the practical classes and the variety of activities. And in this case, there was some criticism around the three of us coordinating that sometimes it's not easy. So some students might be confused, right? And this is a problem of co-teaching, that you have to be very careful. Sometimes is a little bit too demanding for students, although the intention is the opposite. And we conducted focus groups with these students, and from these focus group, I'm going to go straight ahead to the results. They very, very much valued the co-teaching experience, because no students scored less than 5 points to this out of 6, which is a lot. They also liked that classes are more inclusive. So because there are 2 teachers, you can ask to, there are more moments to feel relaxed, and not when the class is conducted just by one teacher and you want to check something, it's evident, it's very noticeable. But when the atmosphere is group working, there are 2 teachers around, you can talk, exchange, so you feel more comfortable to really show your misunderstanding, your, that you are unable to follow something or to do something. And this is something that I think is really interesting from these comments. Also, they think that co-teaching gives them a more active role. So because of these activities in groups, and not only, teacher talk, but more student talk. And they also valued very much the coordination in terms of 2 teachers in the classroom, but not the 3 of us as a team, right? That was a little bit confusing in the post-it. And as I told you before, the opportunity to transfer when doing scaffolding is essential. And it was very, very good news for us when we saw that some students, the first year we implemented this team taught J-CLIL course, they introduced co-teaching in their posters for their dissertations. So when preparing their final degree dissertation, some of them included co-teaching as a strategy, right, for feedback and scaffolding. So that was a sign that the impact on students as, role model of collaborative work, and this competence was being introduced by experiencing learning through team teaching. And comparing a course that is not taught using team teaching, as you can see, teaching English as a foreign language is taught by a similar, not identical teachers, but similar teachers with the same background, and the methodology and the exam forms and so on are similar. So look at the result. A majority of the students did better in the J-CLIL course, or the same. And few students did better in teaching English as a foreign language. And the number of people who failed in the ordinary call was significantly lower, right? So we think that definitely team teaching is a good strategy to scaffold ME courses at university, and gives opportunity to develop lots of different J-CLIL principles that are part of scaffolding. So that was the example of team teaching. And now I'm going to show 2 more examples. They are shorter. I'm not going to spend such a long time with these 2 examples. The next one is about how ICT, information communication technology, can really help us to introduce scaffolding with very low proficiency students. I have, when students freshman students arriving into the education degrees, are organized according to their level for the ME courses. There are A2 students, B1 and C1, right? So, well, and B2, sorry. All the levels of the Common European Framework. And I have to go with the students of the A2 and B1 levels. And for the A2 level, I find extremely difficult sometimes to develop the same content, because the course is the same for all the students, no matter what level they are at. But I have to adapt everything in order to really have them learn this content. So what I do, this is an example on how I teach them the skills to do storytelling and write and understand how to conduct storytelling with primary students. And what I do is this origami project. I have always done this project in class, in groups, etc. But due to the pandemic we've got, I had to transform the project into an online technological project. And I presented the project into a congress in which students were supposed to integrate technology and the objectives for sustainable development. And I thought, what a wonderful thing. I can have my students learn language skills because they are going to learn about storytelling, technological digital skills because they are going to create ebooks with the storytelling they create, social skills because they are going to be aware of these sustainable development objectives and goals. And finally, because they are going to do it this way and they are going to produce this final product, they will develop cognitively and likely learn how to do storytelling in English, even though they are A2 level students. And instead of explaining the project, what I'm going to do is to show you a final product that they have recorded explaining what they have done in this project. So this is when I wanted to stop now. I'm going to dejar de compartir this content, okay? And now I'm going to share the video of my students. Bear in mind, please, that they are A2 students, right? They made a big effort to explain everything. And of course, the English is not a very high level, but I think it is worth to take a look at it as an example. Okay, I'm going to see, all right. Let me know if you can listen.
Magdalena. Sí.
Okay, now.
Hello, we are 12 freshman students at Comillas Pontifical University. We have a core course named English for Education, and our teacher is Magdalena.
She has designed the Origami project, a collaborative writing project to help us on improve writing English or our skills to English teachers.
The first step of this project was to create a character using origami. The second step was to take pictures of the characters to later using in the creation of the story. The third step was to create a description of our origami characters and then gave a name.
On the fourth step, we have to choose one of the 17 goals of the sustainable development. For example, in my group, we have chosen the number 14, that is life below water. On the step 5, we have to write a story based on one goal. We have writing in Google Docs all the history with a moral to teach the pupils. And in the step 6, we have created a storybook with an audio. This part is very important because here we have learned how to write a lot of sentences and a lot of new expressions. When we have finished to write the story, we have to record an audio in this application.
We have shared all the previous steps in the 4 Google Docs that Magdalena created on Moodle. So in these docs, we can see what we did. For example, the characters, the pictures of the animals, the story, and the moral. Then in each group, we put all the links of our stories. At the beginning, Magdalena gave us a rubric that she was updating during the process. After this process, we got the mark for this project. The good thing of using this rubric is that we had our feedback to improve the individual and group work. Finally, we are here recording this video to show you what we have done, because we are so proud of this final result.
We have done this work in groups. We have helped and supported each other.
Each one has collaborated their ideas and we have cooperated to have a good result.
We have done the work in class hours with the help of Magdalena and her corrections and feedback. This has given us new knowledge to improve our projects and our English.
All members of each group have created an ebook to present individually the same story that they wrote together.
First, in class, we watched all the videos of each member of each group, and then we all vote which book we thought was the best of each group.
And these are the 4 ebooks we have chosen to represent our group work.
As future teachers, we are now ready to introduce our future students in the 17 Goals of Sustainable Development of United Nations. The aim of our ebooks is to teach our pupils key values for our work and our lives.
My experience for Origami Project is very rewarding because I have learned about how to achieve the sustainable world, and also I have learned about the danger of the extinction of animals.
From the point of view of language, we have learned a lot using the English for a real purpose, and using ICT tools and collaborative work has led me to improve my skills as a future teacher.
So as you can see, this was an opportunity to keep group work, although we have these restrictions in this situation at the moment with the COVID and so on. So that was, oh, sorry, that's here. Let me go back to the PowerPoint now. Okay, perfect. So that was a very good opportunity using technology to have the students, as you saw, they keep social distance, but they worked in groups. They did a strong collaborative work towards a final product that they have really finally, you know, show in the form of this video. And we have presented it in the Congress I have shown you before. So that was something rewarding for them, and they were really happy about it. And let me finish. Oh, again, it doesn't want to, I don't know. Oh, yeah. Now, the last thing I wanted to share with you, because in CLIL, there is like kind of discussion about soft CLIL, hard CLIL, what type of CLIL do we do? For me, CLIL is CLIL. If it is soft or hard, depending on if you teach it in the content class or in the language class, it's not so important. The important thing is that you really work the CLIL principles in these lessons. So this is an example on how you can increase the cognitive demand. I think Tsuchiya-san in the chapter number 3, I think it is about CLIL teachers education and language education in Japan. She collects some kind of concerns around CLIL in Japan. And one of them is like less content, because it is soft CLIL. We might think there is less content in the lessons, but the important thing is not the amount of content. The important thing is the type of tasks students do to learn this content. And if they do tasks in which they develop high order thinking skills, then we are doing proper CLIL. So this is not a problem at any sense. And this is an example. This is how I teach about a festival, St. Valentine's, to my students, and not only celebrating and exchanging some information or playing games, but by increasing the cognitive demand of the task in which they have to conduct research on this particular festival, and you will see what they do. So again, they are A2 level students, and I show you these examples because this is another concern of some CLIL teachers. How about low levels? Well, low levels need very well thought out tasks and scaffolding, but they are able to do lots of wonderful things and final products. Again, systematically, I give them exposure to the language, in this case, playing games, because the idea was to conduct research, then create a questionnaire, questions, answers. So playing a game with questions, answers, they start being familiar with vocabulary, language they will need. Sharing the rubric and sharing the learning goals, the activity, everything, reception scaffolding. Then reinforcing the language of the questionnaire. So the language, the grammar, the functions they are going to need in order to write proper questions. And finally, some information, the content they need. So this is soft CLIL. Well, I think it's CLIL. For me, it's the same type of CLIL I have shown you in the other lessons. And finally, they have to write the questions for the questionnaire. This time, each student was in charge of designing one of the questions and conducting the survey, and then putting the results of this research into the form of a graph. And the language learning goal was to explain the graph, right? So that's CLIL. And that's very high order thinking skills, because they are not only knowing about St. Valentine's, they are not only celebrating, but they are creating, analyzing, evaluating, and finally creating a product, because they did a presentation about these results, informing about the other groups that were higher level proficiency students, who were really surprised of this work, right? So they did these lovely questions. When was the first Valentine's Day? So as you can see, a majority of people didn't know that. Okay, so this type of questions, this type of thinking skills are the cognitive skills we are supposed to push students to develop in CLIL. How many St. Valentine's Days have you celebrated, right? Or what is more popular, to buy chocolate or flowers? So just as simple as this, and then showing it and get to know how we do in this particular day in Spain, right? If there is someone from outside, compare. So you open there lots of possibilities around a content that is very conventional, right? Very typical to learn about festivals. Well, you can do lots of things in soft CLIL. So, and these are students always showing what they've done in the form of a video, a mural, a poster, whatever. I always want them to display what they learned, and this gives them the motivation to do it better always. So finally, at the end of this workshop, I just have prepared with love this scaffolding toolkit, in which I, of course, include a study stack to create glossaries, games, and vocabulary exposure to students as reception scaffolding. Also for reception scaffolding, an interesting tool to create rubrics in less than 1 minute, as I demonstrated in the video in the other J-CLIL talk. And I have also included Canva, because in Canva you can create beautiful infographics. You can do lots of different material to display visual, products, final products, live worksheets for transformation scaffolding, to create lots of different activities to help the students approach the content from different perspectives, different activity type, different, manipulating this information and processing it. Spreaker, because I love oral tasks. So to save podcasts, this is very useful tool. Mentimeter, to conduct, evaluations and self-assessment during classes, or even to present information, to pull ideas during classes. Very useful to interact with the students during the transformation stage. In my opinion, is critical, because it's where students really develop the learning process and the critical thinking skills. And from wheel, that's amazing for primary students. You can transform their drawings, their stuff in 3 dimensions, and this is amazing. This is wonderful. I have done with in some classes, and it's really memorable, very memorable. And I think that's all. And I cannot see because I have your images here, but there is Socrates. It's a fantastic tool to create online quizzes, right? Which are useful, because I don't know in Japan, but in Spain, parents think that if you don't use a test at the end of the lesson, you are not teaching properly. So they always want their children to have a test. So I give them the test. But fortunately, the test is always good, because they know more than the test. The test is just one piece of information. The important thing is in the rubric and the final product they are able to produce. And this is all. I have also included some links for in-service teachers and for professors at university. They are links to very important projects conducted by researchers in Europe at different universities. IDIVE project is an interesting project to develop materials to attend diversity in CLIL classrooms, because in Spain we have comprehensive schools, and CLIL is implemented in state schools, sometimes ranging 30 to 50% of the curriculum studied in English from year 6 to year 12, and then from year 12 to year 16. So attending diversity is a very serious thing. So this is a fantastic project, and the leader of this project, the researcher, the main researcher, is Marisa Perez Cañado, who is fantastic. And then there are others about WAM that include resources like teachers' glossaries and things that are useful for teachers and professors who have to face the challenge of developing and implementing ME courses. For primary teachers, one very interesting is this Lead for CLIL, that is a repository of scaffolding materials for specific lessons in different countries. One of them, of course, is Spain, and then Finland and Italy and other countries, and other projects, in which you can find more resources. So all of them are useful, in my opinion, and interesting to follow. And they develop seminars, and well, and the important thing is that we keep calm because CLIL is challenging. That's true, but it is very rewarding. And I think that our students have this impression that we really enjoy doing this CLIL. We really have fun with them. It's demanding because you have to prepare lots of things in advance. But once you prepare, you reuse them. So it's not that you always have to do a lot. No, there is a moment for enjoying. And I can say that it's demanding at the beginning, of course, but collaborative work helps relax this aspect. And then if conducted and implemented effectively, is so rewarding that I cannot think of a better way of learning at the moment after more than 25 years in the classroom. So I strongly believe that CLIL is a good approach to teaching and learning, and I hope my examples have demonstrated it. So thank you very much for your attention. I have included here some of the most important references I used to inform some of my ideas. And thank you very much.